Today on Investigate TV, steep child care prices force parents to choose between risky daycares and breaking the bank.
He was screaming bloody murder. He was just in sheer agony.
Plus, a broken system. A mother fights to win back her kids. Hear why she says the court threw her family away.
There is zero reason why I should not have my kids. I've literally missed every small step.
And expecting mothers make birth plans only to find out their caregivers aren't covered by insurance.
I think the system is kind of built to demoralize and exhaust you.
Investigate TV starts right now. Hello and welcome to Investigate TV. I'm Lee Zurich. Exorbitant child care costs, at times nearly 20% of many families' income per child. When expensive centers are out of the question, families search for cheaper alternatives. But in-home daycares may not be regulated the same as larger facilities. Rachel DePompa shares one family's story and how to research daycare before you do the drop-off.
What book do you want, Bubby?
2-year-old Luke Herring loves story time.
Wherever, every day I love you, and I will always love you.
His family is just hopeful he won't remember his story from when he was just 18 months old.
He was screaming bloody murder. He was just in sheer agony. And there were other little kids around who were also crying for her attention. It was a horrible scene.
Marianne and David Herring both work and needed flexible childcare for little Luke. They were running up against what many of us face: limited space at daycare facilities and the high cost. More than $10,000 each year. That's the staggering average price families pay for childcare, according to a recent study.
Just on a weekly basis, averaging between $210 and $250 a week, which is definitely a heavy burden on a family with a tight budget.
I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. That's just not in the cards for us, and that's okay.
Family friends recommended a woman with a home daycare not far from their house.
Her exact words to us: "I'm completely legit." And because she was a family friend, because my neighbors knew her, I just didn't question any further.
You met with her?
We met with her in her home. We met her family. You know, we didn't see any red flags at the time. Otherwise, we never would have taken our child there.
On February 8th of 2022, the Herrings got the call no parent ever wants to receive. While the caregiver was making muffins, Luke burned his hands on the inside of an oven door. The Herrings believe there were more children in the daycare than the provider was able to care for.
They should have called an ambulance. She put aloe vera on his hand, and that was pretty much it.
Marianne and David drove Luke an hour away to an emergency burn center where he stayed for 18 days. The photos of his injuries too graphic to show you. He underwent 5 surgeries.
So you can see the scars there, all through here, as well as all up his hand here.
The family would later find out their provider had no insurance and was not licensed with the state.
Would you use a home daycare again?
No.
No, never.
Making things difficult, in every state, the rules to inspect and regulate daycares are different. Some states require home daycares to be licensed, some do not. In many states, a license would mean oversight of things like inspections, set child to provider ratios, and insurance requirements.
We found incidents all across this country where children were injured inside at-home daycares, families filing lawsuits in Indiana, Illinois, North Carolina, and Missouri, to name a few. Finding a place for your child, it's already difficult. According to data from the U.S. Census, in April and May of last year, 19% of families couldn't send their child to daycare because of 3 things. It was either the cost, concerns over safety, or their daycare provider just wasn't available.
If we want our families to have safe spaces for their children to go to, we have to make sure that we have affordable, accessible childcare.
Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa is trying to get Congress to pass the bipartisan Child Care Deserts Act, which would offer loans to small businesses to help them provide child care for employees.
I hear from parents that really can't find anywhere to place their child so they can go to work, or the cost is pretty exorbitant.
But finding spots for all those kids might be tricky. 12.3 million children needed childcare in 2021, but there were only 8.7 million openings at licensed childcare centers and in-home daycares. That leaves 3.6 million children with nowhere to go. That statistic provided by Child Care Aware of America. It's a nonprofit that specializes in connecting families with child care resources all across this country.
Do you all have a recommendation when it comes to licensed home daycares and unlicensed?
There are family child care homes out there that are not licensed that are doing a good job. And there are family child care homes out there that are licensed that aren't doing a great job. That's why we're here to help you navigate the system.
Mindy Bennett says you need to ask the right questions before you send your child. How long have you been working with children? Are you CPR certified? What type of training do you have? Do you have insurance? Ask to see the documentation. Don't just take their word for it. She also says tour the facility or home and trust your gut.
What does the environment look like? Does it look like there are enough toys and enough equipment for my family? What does it sound like? Are the caregivers engaging with the children? Does it sound happy? Does it sound like the children are talking with one another?
Pay for a background check. Look up a provider's license. Go online and read their ratings, reviews, and inspection reports. Write a contract if your child care is with a family member or friend.
What does a dinosaur say?
Luke is doing much better now. The Herrings want other families to learn from their story.
There's definitely benefits to an in-home daycare, but there's a lot of things that parents need to be aware of. It will forever haunt me that I didn't ask the right questions.
For Investigate TV, I'm Rachel DePompa.
Want to take a deeper dive into some of our investigations? Read more of our team's work at InvestigateTV.com. Coming up, millions of babies delivered every year. Some mothers give birth at home thinking they're covered for care, only to receive massive bills down the road.
There should be federal laws that mandate that women have the right to choose what kind of provider they want and where they want to have their birth.
That story after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. Midwives have assisted women with childbirth for centuries, but they aren't all covered by health insurance plans. And some mothers don't find out until it is too late. Carice Jackman partnered with Kaiser Health to cover one family's struggles with costly care.
Vanessa Garcia Clark and her husband Andres adore their son Emmett.
Full of energy and activity. I wish I had all that he does. I have coffee, he doesn't.
Clark wanted a non-traditional birth, something more personal than a hospital room. She hired a midwife and delivered Emmett at home.
Our midwife was pretty clear about it up front that we would pay cash for her services in increments throughout the pregnancy, and then she would provide us with a super bill at the end of the care that we could then submit to insurance. And the entire amount that was asked to be reimbursed by insurance was about $9,700.
Clark paid her midwife in full and waited on their insurance company to reimburse them.
You have a healthy, happy, satisfied customer, and then you're paying less than you would if I had gone elsewhere. So after the fact, once they saw the bill, I thought they'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. We should do this more often, you know? And that, of course, isn't what happened.
Her benefits administrator denied the claim. She sent the insurance company a request for an internal appeal, arguing that because of the Affordable Care Act, prenatal and well child care are all covered services under their health plan, and therefore cannot be denied, regardless of the provider she chose. But insurance denied her claim again, saying Clark's midwife was not a certified midwife, and because certified midwives are not covered, they'll uphold the denial. So you may be asking, What's the difference? According to the American College of Nurse Midwives, a certified nurse midwife is a registered nurse who also has completed intensive graduate level studies in midwifery. A certified midwife also goes through a graduate level nurse midwifery program. The main difference is they are not RNs. Then there are also certified professional midwives who go through training specific to the birthing field, but may not have taken a traditional nursing or healthcare college track. That's the type of provider Clark's midwife is, and she's also licensed in the state of California. All of these different definitions and who qualifies for reimbursement and why are part of what has Clark so confused and outraged.
I think the system is kind of built to demoralize and exhaust you.
One of the problems in this country is that we have split midwifery up into different kinds of midwives. When it comes to home birth, each of those kinds is totally qualified to do that kind of work.
Dr. Mari Breen Rothman is director of MAMAS, which stands for Metro Area Midwives and Allied Services, located in Maryland.
When you go to a certified nurse midwife or a certified midwife or a certified professional midwife, doesn't matter what kind of midwife, when you go to any of those midwives, they're all going to do the same things that happen at any prenatal visit with an obstetrician at the same intervals. Plus, they're going to do a whole bunch more stuff. They're going to do nutritional counseling and checking on the person's mental health.
Which is why Dr. Rothman feels insurance companies should expand their coverage to acknowledge all midwives, helping make the mother's cost a little bit easier.
There should be federal laws that mandate that women have the right to choose what kind of provider they want and where they want to have their birth.
Dr. David Anderson, professor of economics at Centre College in Kentucky, collected data on at-home births and found the average cost of a home birth is around $4,650, significantly below existing cost estimates if it's a low-risk birth.
If 1% of women shifted from having a birth in the hospital to having a birth at home, that would be a collective savings for our country of $321 million. So the decisions, the policies by governments and the policies by insurance companies matter a lot.
Since November, we've contacted Clark's insurance administrator multiple times by email and phone to explain her denial. The company said in an email that it makes decisions based on plan requirements and applicable law, and said due to a respect for privacy, the spokesperson declined to comment on Clark's case. Midwifery care and at-home births have been around for generations. The interest in home births saw a spike during the pandemic, going from 38,000 to over 45,000 between 2019 and 2020, the highest level since at least 1990. For some mothers, at-home births are not only a different option, but cost-effective.
For those who may say or give up on the fact of like, oh, I want a non-traditional birth, but it just doesn't seem feasible. I mean, what advice would you give to them? Would you say don't give up on that fact?
Well, I mean, there are some people who do, some midwives who do non-traditional births in hospitals, so you may be able to work something out ahead of time that way.
Dr. Elizabeth Rosenthal, editor-in-chief of Kaiser Health News, says before you give birth, ask your insurance provider very detailed questions so you're not caught by surprise.
So you can say, yes, I'd like a payment plan. Before you do that, though, try and negotiate. Say, wow, $9,000 sounds like a lot of money for an uncomplicated birth. How about I'll give you $5,000? And the really weird thing is often they'll say, $5,000 up front, we'll take it, right? So never say, I'll just pay the first bill. Always say, like, can I give you less and will you take it?
Clark doesn't regret her decision. She just hopes that by speaking out about this issue, it will shed light on a topic she feels is rarely discussed.
What kept me going was that I felt like if I put in this extra time, maybe, just maybe, change would happen and other women wouldn't have to fight so hard and they'd be able to bond with their babies.
For Investigate TV, I'm Carice Jackman.
Want to hear more stories like this? Check out the Investigate TV YouTube page for the second part of Costly Care. Find out what you should do when the ER bill doesn't add up and the hospital won't answer your calls. Up next, a broken system leaves families torn apart. One mother's fight to get her children back.
I've literally missed like every small step that a mom needs to be there to see.
That story after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. Across the country, child protective services are understaffed. Low pay and heavy caseloads make it hard to recruit and retain workers. And when departments are overwhelmed, things may slip through the cracks, with families paying the price. Nick Ochsner in Charlotte, North Carolina has more.
When I think about my baby, I've never heard his voice. I haven't seen him since November 1st of 2018. I haven't seen my oldest since September 9th of 2019.
These pictures are all Toya Potts has left of her sons. It's been 2 years since she last saw them.
I was like, I'll get to see you on Thursday, which is only like 2 days away. And he was like, so I'm gonna get to see you, right, Mommy? I was like, yes, I'll be back. And I've never come back.
Potts' parental rights were terminated by a judge in July 2021. Allegations of abuse thrust her and her children into North Carolina's child protective system after her youngest child's father dropped the baby, sending him to the hospital.
That should be long enough to figure out.
Both the child's father and Potts were charged with child abuse. Her charges were later dropped. Court-appointed experts ruled she was fit to be a parent, but DSS didn't give the kids back.
It's kind of so frustrating because it's like, I know how I was raised, and I'm like, I'm a really good mom.
Potts spent years fighting to regain custody of her children. She tried getting her sons placed with family members out of state through a process known as the Interstate Compact on the Placement of Children. The process requires social workers in one state fill out paperwork, send it to another state, and ask those social workers to go evaluate a family to see if they're fit to care for children. Potts gave social workers multiple options for family in Georgia and Florida, but it took years for anyone to be approved. A revolving door of social workers assigned to her case in North Carolina meant the paperwork never got started.
This is a good thing.
When the process was complete 2 years later, it was too late. Potts' family members were cleared to get custody of her kids at almost the same time a judge decided to terminate her parental rights.
You just think it's just a process that works, but it doesn't work like that.
Does it work at all?
In my experience, I would say no. Because if it did, I should have my children here today. We wouldn't even be doing this interview.
It really is impossible to grapple with the injustice here.
Elizabeth Simpson is an attorney with Emancipate NC, who typically works on civil rights and prison cases.
The court was really run very much like traffic court, it's district court, and it seemed like the judge would accept whatever DSS said as what goes. And as I looked into it further, there was so much social worker turnover.
Potts had 5 different social workers in 4 years. None of them had the case long enough to move it forward. Turnover among social workers is a nationwide problem. North Carolina saw a 45% turnover rate, according to the most recent data. Texas saw a 42% turnover last year. And Tennessee has seen its staff turnover rate skyrocket from 15% in 2018 to 55% in 2022. That churn of social workers has had consequences in North Carolina. Counties with higher turnover have also seen children in DSS custody longer, the data showed.
This system is one that takes kids first and asks questions later.
So you had a list of experts saying, here is a parent who's a good parent and should have her children, and no one listened to that.
That's exactly right.
How can you justify a system that works like that?
I don't think you can justify a system that works like that. I think this is a system that needs to be rebuilt entirely.
There is zero reason why I should not have my kids. I've literally missed every small step that a mom needs to be there to see.
Up next, come across any property listings that seem too good to be true? The federal government says, trust your gut. A warning on a growing real estate scam after the break. Welcome back to Investigate TV. A warning from law enforcement. Real estate schemes are on the rise, specifically involving vacant properties. Con artists impersonate homeowners to make a hefty sum. Carice Jackman shows us how to spot the scam.
It's a scam that impacts prospective home buyers, real estate attorneys, and title companies.
I hate to say this, but it's relatively simple to do. And that's what concerns all of us.
Con artists posing as property owners or sellers and getting away with thousands, sometimes millions of dollars. The Secret Service recently issued this security advisory after seeing an increase in real estate scam reports. Thomas Cronkite is chairman of Certified, a wire fraud recovery and prevention company. He has seen firsthand the devastating impact of this con.
We've had some people that face homelessness after this because they've already sold their house.
Cronkite says the scam works like this. The fraudster looks up the ownership records of a vacant property online, impersonates the owner, then hires a real estate agent to list the property for sale. The scammer will then push for a cash sale under market value in the hopes of closing quickly and making off with all of the buyer's funds. Cronkite says the scam is happening all across the nation, particularly with commercially zoned properties where vacant land might be worth more than a residential lot. He says it's an easy target for fraudsters because owners may not think about their property until they're ready to build or improve it. Jonathan Biggs, Vice President of Risk Management for Investors Title Insurance Company, says victims have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
On the vacant or unoccupied property, I think the biggest number I heard was $980,000. On wire fraud, I've heard numbers that got well into well over $1 million.
There are several ways you can protect yourself. One, ask your real estate agent a lot of questions about the seller.
As a buyer, really ask the questions around, have you met the seller? How did this listing come through? If you're working with a real estate agent as a buyer, make sure that they're asking these questions of the listing agent.
Also, be wary of a seller willing to accept an offer below market value in exchange for a quick cash sale. And never allow a seller to arrange their own notary closing. Make sure you use a trusted title company or closing attorney to coordinate the exchange of closing documents and funds. All tips that can keep your money in your pocket and away from criminals looking to take your hard-earned savings. With this watching your wallet, I'm Carice Jackman.
Another tip, make sure you independently search for the identity and a recent picture of the property seller online. If you're looking for more investigative reporting on demand, download our streaming apps on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. And that's it for us. Thanks for joining us here on Investigate TV. Hope to see you next week.